What up, everybody? Raising Kanan Season 3, Episode 6, Lou and Famous were bonding in the studio as Famous was recording his new song 411. While recording, Famous had to pause to gather himself because it got too real, but Lou encouraged Famous to keep going. After Famous proceeded to spit his bars, Lou went on to tell Famous that he was going to church in the booth and to let that truth set him free. At this time, both Famous and Lou were dealing with heavy guilt about catching a body. Then, after speaking to Rock for the first time in a while, Lou relapsed and started hitting the whiskey bottle harder than ever, to the point he got blackout drunk and decided to go confess to Chantel what happened to Scrappy, hoping that the truth would set him free. But it actually did the opposite. Chantel went running her mouth to the cops, as expected she would do, which caused Lou to have to smoke Chantel at the end of the episode, causing Lou to go even deeper into darkness and into the liquor bottle. So with that said, just like Lou's truth caused him to catch another body, I think this could be a clue that before Season 3 is over with, that we could see Famous also catching another body, most likely as a result of spitting his truth in those bars. In episode 306, after his recording session with Lou, Famous got home and finally also decided to tell Kanan the truth that it was Rock who put the gun in Kanan's backpack, which then caused Kanan to kick Famous out of his own place. A lot of people were confused about how Kanan could just kick Famous out of his own place. But keep in mind, going back to Season 2, Kanan is the reason Famous got that apartment in the first place, by stealing from Rock's operation. First money, then some crack to sell on the corner. So in all honesty, Kanan is really entitled to that apartment, especially considering he's the one who is hustling to take care of the eviction notice and keep the rent paid. It wasn't said where Famous went to stay between the episodes, but I'm guessing that he went to his mother's, and that's when they worked things out. Keep in mind, from the first episode of this season, Kanan was talking about how glad he was to be on his own and away from Rock, while Famous was talking about how much he wished he could just go back home to live at his mother's house. Also keep in mind, right before Rock came and put that gun in Kanan's bag, Kanan had just left to go meet up with Juke, and Famous was supposed to be still handling business. But instead, he disconnected the phone, lit up a blunt, and started writing a verse to his song. So honestly, I think when Famous took that money from Rock and didn't say anything to Kanan, he was subconsciously hoping that Kanan would get caught and have to move back in with his moms, so Famous could have the place to himself again. I mean, honestly, who wants to live with somebody who's always bossing you around and smacking you in your face, even if that is your day one? I would probably start to reevaluate my friends, because if you smack me, trust, you're going to get hit upside your head and beat down. I don't care who you are. I mean, there's a 0% chance that we're not throwing hands after that. Getting us to episode 307, and Famous's mother had agreed to let him move back home, but he still had to go get the rest of his things from Kanan's apartment, only to walk in and find Ronnie in there with a gun pointed at Paul. But everybody cleared the space for a minute to give Famous a chance to get his things, and so Paul could get cleaned up. And it was at this time we finally figured out what Famous did with the gun he smoked Freddy with, and that is, he kept it. So Famous took the gun, put it in his bag, and eventually hid it in a shoebox at his mom's house. So the big question is, why would Famous keep that gun and not get rid of it? My thinking is that he likes having access to a gun in case he feels like he needs it. And if he got rid of the gun, he would have lost that access, not having a way to get another one. But before Famous could leave Kanan's apartment and go home, he was stopped by Ronnie, who questioned and intimidated Famous, saying that Kanan told him that he likes to run his mouth. And just like I can't relate to letting someone smack me in my face, neither can I relate to letting someone get up in my face and talk to me crazy. Ronnie would have been knocked out before he even had a chance to think about taking his glasses off. But keep that in mind as I proceed with this video. Also keep it in mind how Famous caught his first body, trying to get back on Freddy, the same kid who had robbed him and Kanan a few weeks earlier. And either though Kanan had already got his get back, I guess Famous wanted to double down and tried robbing the grimiest kid he knew. Getting me to the question, will Famous catch another body? I made a video last month when I mentioned the possibility that Famous was in prison with Kanan season 1 of Power. But in order for that theory to stick, Famous would most likely need to catch another body. Because Power season 1 is still 22 years away from our current timeline. And with Famous being a juvenile with no prior criminal history, I don't think he would serve 20 plus years for killing Freddy. Especially because in court, it wouldn't be considered murder 1, but more than likely manslaughter. But with that said, if Famous were to go out and catch another body, most likely with the same gun, and then get caught with the gun, then Famous would most likely be looking at a life sentence, or at least a 25 to 30 year sentence. So with that said, what's next for Famous, and how could he potentially catch another body before the end of season 3? Because like I mentioned earlier, after Kanan would have let Ronnie get in my face like that, our friendship would most likely been over with. And Famous isn't that aggressive, but at the end of the day, he's probably still feeling like, as long as Kanan's kicking with that Ronnie dude, I'm good. We also saw Lou continuing to work on the song 411 on episode 7, finishing up the mixing and mastering to get it on the radio next. Now keep in mind when Famous wrote the song Streets Need a Body, he brought up in that song details of Kanan and D-Wiz shooting Buck 20, which later on Davina heard the song and put the pieces together to question Kanan about what happened. So after Lou gets the song ready and forces DJ Mo to start playing the track on the radio, there will be some people who are going to hear that song, and this could possibly be how Famous ends up catching another body. When Freddy robbed Kanan and Famous, he had 2 guys with him, and when Kanan went to get his get back, those same 2 guys were there also. When they hear the song 411 on the radio, they definitely could be looking to get revenge on Famous. And with that said, they could end up bodying Famous themselves. But I think they will either shoot at Famous and miss, and he will end up getting his gun and smoking them, or the other possibility is that they will target Kanan, thinking Famous wrote the song about him, the same thing that Davina thought. Then after Freddy's crew starts a problem with Kanan, Kanan would tell Famous about it and tell him that he needs to make it right. And Famous catches another body that way. Then keep in mind that the old man across the hall heard everything go down, and Freddy even say the name Famous. But when Detective Garcia showed up to talk to him, he said he didn't remember hearing anything. When the new song 411 drops on the radio and Famous is spelling his name out on the song, the old man could hear it and end up reporting it to the cops. Then Howard would get this news at the precinct, and not knowing if Kanan might be possibly involved, he takes the news to Kanan, who tells Famous. Then Famous does what he has to do and smokes the old man to keep him from snitching. And before I go, I want to bring up the fact that Jukebox and Famous haven't spoke all season. And Jukebox reported back to Rock in episode 7 that Famous moved out. I think that Juke will go looking for Famous to see what happened. And in doing this, she will find out a couple things. First, that Rock set Kanan up by putting a gun in his backpack. And second, how Ronnie was over there intimidating Famous. And Juke already has a problem with Ronnie herself. So with that said, I also feel like there's a chance that Famous and Juke will come up with a plan to get rid of Ronnie themselves. And there you have it. Will Famous catch another body? Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.